Again, Wildcats. All right, so starting off, you notice something a little different in the video. I'm actually not in the video. I'm gonna make that change and let me know in class if you like it without me in the video, or if you let me know if you prefer if I'm in the video. So we can kind of, as a class, decide that to make that adjustment, okay? Or just keep it how it's been. All right, so today we're looking at Friday, October 13th, Formulate 3 variable systems on page 20. So if you would, update your table of contents. All right, now your table of contents are updated. Let's take a look at our notes. Okay, so it's Formulate 3 variable systems on page 20. Steps to formulate and solve a system. Step 1, define the variables. Step 2, write the equations. Step 3, solve the system. Step 4, explain the solution in sentence form. All right, if you would, pause the video and update your notes. All right, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at our examples. Now I'm going to go over both examples. If you get overwhelmed, like, whoa, this is too much, let me. We can always go over any of the examples in class. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, example 1. At the arcade, Sammy won 2 blue tickets, 1 yellow ticket, and 3 red tickets for $1,500. 15 total points. Whoa, that was a bell. Jamal won 1 blue ticket, 2 yellow tickets, and 2 red tickets for 1,225 total points. Yvonne won 2 blue tickets, 3 yellow tickets, and 1 red ticket for 1,200 points. Determine the point value of each ticket. And that right here helps us define the variable. Okay? So we know that our variable is the point value for each type of ticket. So let's write that down. All right, now the next change I'm going to do, now this is unnatural to write, but I'm going to try to write so that my hand is not in the way like I normally write. Like this is natural, this is not natural, but I'm going to try to write differently to see if it helps so you can see as I'm writing. All right, so B is the blue ticket. Point value. Let's make Y the yellow. Whoa, another bell. They just keep coming. Okay, and then R is the point value for red. All right, now in our notes, step 2 is write the equations. All right, so let's write the equation. So it says at the arcade, Sammy won 2 blue tickets. So that's 2 blue tickets plus 1 yellow ticket plus 3 red tickets, and that equals 1,500 points. All right, the next one is Jamal won 1 blue plus 2 yellow plus 2 red tickets for a total of 1,225 points. All right, and then Yvonne won 2 blue plus 3 yellow plus 1 red for a total of 1,220 points. All right, so we have our equations. Now step 3 says solve the system. So to solve the system, we look to limit. There's no negative, so we're going to have to multiply by negative. Okay. Now I'm looking at equation 1 and 2 because they both have a 2b. So if I multiply the third equation by -1, we can eliminate the b's. So let's do that. So we're doing equations 1, which is 2b plus 1y plus 3r equals 1,500. All right, and then equation 3 is, now we're going to multiply by negative 1. So that's negative 2b, negative 3y, negative 1r, and negative 1,220. Wait a second, that's not 1,200. That's 1,200. Whoa. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how I wrote 1,200 to 1,220. But there you go. The mistake is fixed. So now we know the b's canceled. Now you're left with negative 2y plus 2r equals 300. And that's equation 4. All right. Now we have to combine 2 more equations. So we can either combine 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 2. So, but we have to eliminate the b. So I'm thinking I'm going to combine the, let's see. I'm thinking 1 and 2, because if we multiply the second equation by negative 2, the b's will cancel. Okay, so let's do that. So 1 is 2b plus 1y plus 3r equals 1,500. And then equation 2 is, and notice I'm keeping the number. That helps keep your work track so you know where you're getting your work and where you're going from. Okay, so 2, that becomes negative 2b minus 4y minus 4r equals, I'll have to put that in the calculator. I think I know what it is, but I want to make sure I write it down correctly. 1,225 times negative 2 is negative 2,450. All right, so we need to combine these to get equation 5. And remember, whenever you're doing this, you have to cancel the same variable. So the b's cancel, so you get negative 3y minus 1r equals 1,500 minus 2,450 is negative 950. All right, so now you have equations 4 and 5. Now, because they have the same variable, we can combine them, okay? Now, here's the thing. It looks like we have a negative, and that's what you're looking for, negative, positive. We have a positive 2, negative 1. That's what we want, but these won't cancel. But if we multiply the second, or equation 5 by 2, these will cancel, okay? So we're not going to do anything to equation 4. So that's negative 2y plus 2r equals 300. And then we multiply by 2, so that's negative, multiply equation 5 by 2, so that's negative 6y minus 2r, and then negative 950 times 2 is negative 1,900. So we get negative 8y, the r's cancel, equals 300 minus 1,900 should be negative 1,600, but I'm using calculators to make sure, negative 1,600. All right, we've ran out of space, so let's just continue the work up to here. So if you divide, now we're going to solve for y. We divide both sides by negative 8. Y equals Negative 1600 divided by negative 8, 200. So the yellow tickets are worth 200 points each, okay? All right, so now we can plug 200 back into either equation 4 or 5, or, yeah, so it looks like 5 has a lot of negatives. That seems like that might not be a good, you could do it, but I think probably 4 is better. So we're going to plug in 200 for y and solve for r. So that's negative 2 times 200 plus 2r equals 300. Well, that's negative 400 plus 2r equals 300. We're going to add 400 to both sides, so you get 2r equals 700 divided by 2. The red tickets are worth 350 points. All right, and then the last thing is you're going to plug both of those values into one of the original equations. You look for one that's probably the easiest to work with. Really not making a difference, but I think 1500 is probably an easier number than 1225, so let's just use the first one. So then you have 2b plus 1 times 200 is just 200, plus 3 times 350 equals 1500. Okay, so then we get 2b, and we can actually combine these at once. 200 plus 3 times 350, and you can just use a calculator for that. 200 plus 3 times 350 combines to be plus 1,250 equals 1,500. Subtract 1,250 from both sides, so you get 2b equals 1,500 minus 1,250 is 250. So then b equals 125. So the blue tickets are worth 125. All right, let you pause for a minute to finish up your work on example 1. All right. Now, the one thing you can't forget is you have to explain your solution in sentence form. Now, we ran out a little space here, so I think we're going to have to write the solution maybe here. So we can say the blue tickets are 125 points. The yellow tickets are 200 points. And the red are 350 points. And again, your sentences don't have to be perfect. They just have to explain what the numbers represent, okay? All right, so another thing I'm going to be doing new is I'm going to go over all the examples in the videos, unless I think it's going to make the video like 40 minutes, which would be crazy. Just so those students that want to work ahead, they've seen both examples or all the examples, and they could move ahead on the assignment, okay? All right, so let's look at example 2. All right, in a fruit salad, there are 2 more bananas than apples and 8 times as many cherry as apples. If a total of 22 pieces of fruit are used, how many of each type are in the salad? All right, so first let's define the variables. So it's looking, and again, it's telling how many of each type. So that's basically, that tells you variables. So let's just call A, the number of apples, let's call B the number of bananas, about to misspell bananas, that would be bananas. Okay, and C, the number of cherries. All right, now the next step is we're going to write the equations, okay? So it says there are 2 more bananas than apples. There are 2 more bananas than apples. That means the number of bananas equals the number of apples plus 2. Okay? Now the next sentence says, and 8 times as many cherries as apples. That means the number of cherries is 8 times the number of apples. Now total, that's the easiest equation to write, 22. That means A plus B plus C equals 22. All right. So here, this is a unique situation because what I want you to see is we have B equals in terms of A, we have C in terms of A, so we can actually use substitution. We can substitute A plus 2 for B and 8 times A for C, and then we'll have only A as a variable. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to solve. Okay, so we have A plus, now B is A plus 2 plus C, which is 8A, and that equals 22. And the reason we did that is now the only variable we have is A, and we can solve that equation for A. Okay? All right. So we actually don't need the parentheses here because there's not a number in front. And so now we're going to solve for A. So we combine terms first. So there's 1A, and 8A. So that's 10A, and then plus 2 equals 22. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides to get 10A equals 20. Divide both sides by 10. A equals 10. All right. Since we know A is 10, we see that cherries is 8 times the number of apples. So we know that cherries equals 8 times 10. So we know there's 80 cherries. Now we can actually, we have the C value and we have the A value. And we can substitute those values into the last equation and solve for B. So A is 10, so it's 10 plus B we don't know, plus C is 80. Wait a second. Whoa, almost made a mistake here. Craziness. And the reason it's kind of important I made a mistake is because I knew once I said that, when I was going to subtract, this was going to be 80. And when I subtracted 80 from both sides, I know I was going to get a negative number. And I know I can have negative number of bananas. And that's okay to make a mistake sometimes. But what you need to understand is to know when your numbers are relevant. And if as we worked it, you would have realized we would have worked through and got b equals a negative number. And so we'd have known that that was a mistake. So that means we go back and check our work. In this case, we see that we divide 20 by 10, which is not 10, it's 2. Okay, that changes this to be 8 times 2, which is 16. Another thing to note is you knew there were only 22 total fruit. So the fact when we got 80 for cherries, that was I want to sound wait a second, that's wrong because we have a total of 22. Okay, so the number of cherries is 16. Okay, so that changes this to be A is 2, apple plus bananas we don't know, plus the cherries is 16, and that equals 22. Okay, so now we combine terms, we get 2 plus 16 is 18. Whoa. Okay. And it's also good, as I was thinking about, the bell just brought in mind, is I know one of y'all's thoughts was like, don't make any mistakes, but that's unrealistic. I mean, in the real world, there are mistakes. And when they happen, it's important lessons to work, and especially this case, because some of you might have made the mistake, and now it's understanding, well, what do you do when you make a mistake in mathematics, okay? So just a heads up, if I make mistakes in videos and things like that, it's a good opportunity we can have that conversation and talk about it, okay? All right, so here we subtract 18 from both sides. B equals 4. Now, speaking of understanding if you made a mistake, okay, if we made a mistake, then when we add these three numbers together, we won't get 22. And if that's true, then we made a mistake. But if they add up to be 22, the odds of us making a mistake are very slim to none, okay? So it's a good idea to go back and check, okay? So to check, we know we have apples is 2 plus, bananas are 4 plus cherries are 16 equals 22. Well, 4 plus 16 is 20, add 2, this checks, so our answer is correct. So don't forget to explain your answer to a sentence. So it can be a simple sentence. So you can say, there are 2 apples, 4 cherries, and 16 bananas. All right, so with that, you really, depending on who's watching the video, some of you, I would suggest starting working on the assignment. If you understood example 1 and 2, start working on the assignment. If you didn't understand one of the examples, I would stop here, put some notes, and remind yourself that you need to ask me to work example 2 or example 1 or both, and then you can start the assignment in class on Friday. So with that, have a wonderful Wildcat